I actually do work with a lot of people with EFT who are on a spiritual path, right? And I've just found that on that spiritual path, there was still a need, a real need, to do some emotional healing around it. There was a time when the advent of deeper spiritual practices really kind of took over in the 80s and 90s and the like. The 60s as well. It went back, but it really took off in the 80s with the whole self-help and consciousness movement. And also certain kinds of spiritual practices which are more non-duality, which are about self-inquiry. And there was, because of the sheer amount of stress and toxicity and trauma that is in the Western culture, these various practices got used as a way of avoiding our own emotional pain, as a way of trying to, another way in which we suppress it, which is, of course, the habit we learned right from the get-go. So it's only natural that, self-help and a lot of these things, and spirituality and meditation and yoga and all of these things became got put to that use. It was called a spiritual bypass, right? But I found that over time we've matured, and that isn't happening as much anymore. Although what happens sometimes is that there's this assumption now that everything needs to be processed. Every little feeling that comes up, I got to process it. I got to process it, and we can get caught on what I call the self-help treadmill, right? Just over and over again, one thing after another, because now we get really attached to doing the processing work. As Freud once said, sometimes a cigar is just a cigar. Sometimes a feeling arises and it's just passing through. You don't need to grab it and work on it as if it was some kind of permanent condition. So I find that if you take this approach, right, that you just be with the body long enough, right, that if there is something that requires some real diligent looking, some more concentrated effort using tapping or some other modality, that it really becomes obvious that that's the case. And it doesn't have to be this obsession that every time something comes up, I've got to work on it, because you don't. Some things do. The private sessions I do with people, and some of the group classes that I do, there's a lot of work that gets done very specifically. Particularly, something that's popped up a lot in my own practice of it has been around childhood abuse, childhood traumas, which do need some special attention. They don't just disappear. They really need a concentrated effort, and sometimes some professional techniques and guidance that I can't give. Right? So I'll send people to a somatic experiencing expert, or somebody's into those kind of more body-related modalities, because that's part of the deal. People who come with addictions, I will send them. There's certain things I can do about that, and certain things, you really need to get some professional help, some assistance with those kinds of things, because they're very dogged. They're very sticky. Now, that doesn't mean something like EFT, this approach, can't do it. Just as a professional practitioner of it, I have to be very careful that I don't overstate it, and that I take the best care of people that I possibly can. But it's important for us to know that not everything that comes up is a thing that needs to be processed to death. Right? Some things we can just They come up, we let them be there, and they will leave on their own. And the more you do this kind of presence tapping, where you're bringing yourself into this natural state of equanimity, the more that happens. Right? Because the body has natural mechanisms for rerouting the energy that it's stirred, for getting out of fight, flight, and freeze. It knows how to do that. It just needs the space in order to do that. And then sometimes it needs some extra help to do that.